If you're a scuba diver who likes to travel the world from different dive locations using commercial jets, do you ever wonder how pilots figure out how to get from one place to another? Do they just point the plane in the general direction of where they're traveling? No, they use a flight plan to determine how to navigate safely from one location to another. And we're going to talk about how that affects us as scuba divers. Hey guys, welcome to Everything Scuba. I am Lyle, and if you're a first-time viewer to our channel, welcome. We're glad you're here. We are here talking about, well, everything related to the sport that we love. And if you love it too, if you love to scuba dive into Everything Scuba. As part of the certification process that I underwent with instructor Nevin on the AP Inspiration Rebreather, we did some air diluent decompression dives. You allow the NDL to run out. In this episode, I'm going to show you a dive that we did in Cane Bay, down the wall to about 130 feet. We spent 25 to 30 minutes at 130 feet, which is well past the no decompression limit for a recreational diver. We've also got a really special guest on this show who's going to walk you through some theory behind how to plan and execute a decompression dive. A quick disclaimer though, do not attempt this by yourself if you do not have the appropriate training, and I'm guessing the guest on our show is going to reiterate that to you. First step is to build the rebreather and test it to make sure it's safe before we take it underwater. Bubble checks are completed at a shallow depth. We begin our descent down the Cane Bay wall. It's a long way down. Checking my handset, I can see we're at 86 feet, and I have a no stop time, which is the same as no decompression limit of 25 minutes. Now at 90 feet, and I'm down to 2 minutes of no stop time. I'm now about to go somewhere I've never gone before. 1 minute left. And the descent only gets steeper. But man, is it beautiful down here. So quiet, so serene. One more check of my handset, and what the heck? What is TTS? The surface looks so far away. How did I get into this? And how do I get out of it? Well, let's talk to another YouTube channel, Gary with Deefer Diving, an experienced rebreather diver and instructor.
So this didn't happen by accident. This was a planned event, and Lyell did have a plan to get back to the surface. Hi, I'm Gary, and I'm one of the instructors here at Deefer Diving in Carriacou. Where is Carriacou, I hear you ask? Paradise. That's where. You should Google it. So Lyell has asked me today to talk a little bit about the planning considerations you should take into place when you want to dive beyond the recreational limits. Now before we go any further, I just want to let you know this is not a training course. This does not substitute a training course, but if you're thinking about diving beyond recreational dive limits and into decompression diving, you should take a training course. Why? Because you don't know what you don't know. I think Rumsfeld kind of coined it very, very well by calling them unknown unknowns. I love that phrase. So let's talk a little bit about dive planning. We all remember learning dive planning when we did our open water course, using a table, using a wheel, using a calculator thingy to work out our pressure groups, and our surface intervals. And I'm sure we then used it religiously every time we planned a dive after that to calculate how much surface interval and what pressure group we were in and what was the maximum depth of the next dive we can do. Yeah, no. I'm sure I'm not the only one who didn't really understand the concepts of decompression models and pressure groups and dive planning when I did my open water course. And so I bought a dive computer and job's fixed, done, isn't it? Yeah, all the planning considerations I need. So if you're that type of diver, then this video probably isn't or wasn't for you. But let's put things a little bit into perspective. If we took all the known theory about decompression and put it into one book, it'd be a pretty big book. Kind of a Lord of the Rings big book. And if we took all of the dive theory that is part of your open water course, it would be the foreword on the inside cover of the front of the book. And it can be summarized as this: there is a limit that you can dive before you can come straight back to the surface. Don't exceed that limit. End of. That's it. And for most divers, that's absolutely fine. But what if you're not most divers? What if you want to go a bit deeper? What if you want to go a bit longer? Hey, I still got gas. Well, the physics and physiology associated with diving is a little bit more complicated than that. And the "I got me some more gas" isn't going to cut it. If you extend your dive beyond your decompression limit and fail to fulfill your decompression obligations, you can significantly increase your risk of injury and death. In other words, a decompression dive should always be a planned event. This means we need a plan. No, we're not going to use a recreational dive planner, as that's not going to cut the mustard. But we have some other tools that we can use. Personally, I use something called vPlanner, where I can input all the planned parameters of the dive, and it'll provide me with a recommended dive profile, including all of the stage and decompression stops. But before we even start with tools, there are a few things we need to think about first. Firstly, how deep are we going to go? With this information, we can determine what gas we're going to breathe. On a rebreather, we're typically diving nitrox. I mean, a rebreather is effectively just a portable gas blending machine that we take diving with us. But depending on the depths we're going to, we might also want to reduce the narcotic effect of the gases that we're breathing, and we might want to switch to a trimix diluent instead of an air. So how deep we're going is an important consideration. How long do we want to be at the bottom is our next consideration. Why? Two reasons. The length of time at the bottom will significantly determine the amount of time you'll need to spend in decompressing in shallow water. The longer you're down deeper, the longer your decompression stops are going to be. So the second thing we need to think about is how much gas we're going to consume when we're on the dive, and therefore how much gas do we need to take with us. On a rebreather, which is largely a lossless system, it becomes less of a factor, but still a factor we need to take into our planning. And in the case that something goes wrong, we need to plan a contingency. We need to make sure we've got enough gas supply with us to be able to handle a bailout to get us to the surface and still do our decompression obligations too. Now you'll notice on Lyell's handset, where he exceeded his NDL, his no decompression limit, his handset changed to display something called TTS, which stands for time to surface. Time to surface is your computer's way of showing you how long you should take at that current depth before you get back to the surface. As you ascend, your TTS will clock up more slowly before starting to reduce as you start to fulfill your decompression obligation. You can then track this reduction in your TTS against your original dive plan and make sure that you're completing and fulfilling all of your planned and actual decompression obligations. Now, the beauty of a rebreather system is that you are able to increase the oxygen content of the loop that you're breathing to nearly 100%, which means that you're able to accelerate the way your body off-gasses the nitrogen, which means you can significantly increase the speed of your decompression stops. But this is all part of the dive plan. So this plan, we've planned the depth, we've planned the time we intend spending at the bottom. We've planned which gas we're going to dive on, whether it be an air diluent or a trimix diluent. We've planned our stage stops and our decompression stops, and the length of time and the depth that each one of those is going to be at. We've also planned for any gas switches we're going to do and when we're going to do them to maximize the benefits of the gas and to minimize our decompression times. We've even planned a contingency and what to do if things go wrong, and what gases we're going to take with us to ensure that we can still get to the surface safely. And that's a lot of stuff that we've planned. That's a lot of stuff to remember. And with the narcotic effect of the gases that we're breathing in, remember, we will not. So we write it down, all of it, either on a slate, a wrist slate perhaps, or a normal slate, or on wet notes. We will write it down, and we will refer to this plan a lot whilst we're diving. And this is where the old phrase in decompression diving and technical diving comes from: plan the dive, dive the plan. By doing that, we'll come back safely. So if we plan the dive properly and we execute the plan as intended, we'll all safely come back from what's undoubtedly one of the most exhilarating dive experiences beyond recreational limits you're likely to have. They are fab dives. As Lyell and I have both said, this is not a training video, and this is not a video aimed at replacing or mitigating your need to be trained. If you contemplate diving beyond recreational dive limits, beyond the limits to which you've been trained, I'll advise you to hook up with an instructor that you can rely on and you can trust, and get the additional training that you will need. So all that's left to say is dive safe, dive long, dive plenty.
Hey, that's a big thanks to Gary with Deefer Diving. If you guys don't know Deefer Diving's YouTube channel, if you enjoy watching everything scuba, you will love their channel. We're big fans. They're great instructors. They've got some awesome content. So go check out their channel at the link above. If you got some good out of this video, click that like button down below. It really helps to spread the word of everything scuba, helps out our channel. And don't forget, you want to find some cool merch on our merch store. If you want to be a solo diver and like to do it by yourself, we got the t-shirts for you. But never fear, this is not the end of our Rebreather series. I'm about to take delivery of an AP Inspiration unit of my very own. So we're gonna put together some videos of unboxing that, getting it ready to go for its first dives, and we're gonna do a Q&A series with instructor Mark Nevin. We've gotten lots of questions and feedback about Rebreather diving, and he's the guy to give you those answers, so stick around.